Hey Bria, it's Chris. This is a Lazy Checker disc review. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be looking at the Bagger from Pie-Pan Discs. Pie-Pan is a new disc manufacturing company out of Ohio. I might have seen online they just got placed on Infinite's website, so they're starting to grow a little bit, and that's good. This is their first release. I think it was in 2021 that they released it. It's their Butterline putter. It's a little bit, if you're familiar with Latitude or Dynamics, it's a little bit like blend or medium plastic, that type of feel. A little bit about the disc. It is big bead. If you can't see that one, we can go to this one. You can see that hefty bead there. So for comparison in this video, you're going to see me throw a couple other popular big bead molds, including one of the older ones, a Wizard, and one of them, it's more current, but it's still actually a decade old, the Judge. Now I'm going to say that I threw Wizards over a decade ago, before I started throwing Judges, and I didn't remember being quite as overstable as this old organic. This is from like 08 or 09 era type range, somewhere in there. Somebody from Homer can tell me if they see this video. But when the Judge came out, what I noticed was it was a little bit flatter and a little bit wider than the Wizard. So it went a little bit straighter. When I was reviewing the Bagger, obviously felt good in my hand because I like beaded putters, but it was a little bit wider than either of those and flatter still, like almost concave. And that could be because of the softer plastic. So when they do a firmer run, when they eventually do a firmer run, it might be a little bit domier. But for now, the run that they have out is a little bit like a medium type plastic with that nice flat top. Now, how did it fly? Like I said, I didn't remember the Wizard being quite as overstable as this one. I thought it was a little bit straighter, but this was the most overstable of the bunch, followed by the Baggers, and then the Hybrid Judge. I was kind of surprised because the Hybrid Judge is one of the more overstable Judges I've thrown, but the Bagger was just a little bit more overstable. So if you're familiar with like the West Side Shield or a Marshall from Dynamic Discs, just a little bit heavier fade on them. They would be considered overstable, but they're not meat hook like Zone, Harp type disc, approach disc. Instead, they're going to be a putter that you can throw hard and expect to fade at the end, even if you put some tilt on it, which you're going to see. I'm actually going to throw some mistake throws in the woods, and that's because I flexed them, but instead of turning them to drift out to actually turn over, instead of turning it over to actually turn it, I started to turn, but it faded out. And that's because of that natural stability that's there that you'll get to see. So you're going to see it in the field, you're going to see me putt with it, and you're going to see some comparisons to the Wizard and Judge. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. As always, I love getting back to you, and it's a new year with Lazy Checker disc golf reviews. New year for me, 2023, and it's going to be fun looking at some Pie-Pan discs and some other discs as well. Thank you for Hazy Shade for making this possible. Always appreciate your support. Make sure to hit up their website, hazyshade.com, or go to their storefront in Dayton, Ohio. As always, thanks for watching. Let's look at the profiles of the disc. Bagger on the left is a little bit flatter, and when we go in and zoom in on the wing here, you're going to see a very similar construction, very rounded with a big bead on the bottom. They're going to feel very similar in the hand. Bagger versus Judge, again, Bagger maybe just a little bit flatter, but you can see the difference in the wing construction here. Still similar with that large bead. On the putting green, inside 20 feet seemed pretty smooth and easy for me. I use a pretty beaten Judge, so it's fairly neutral. So when I got to the longer ranges, the extra stability was definitely showing. A lot of left side chains, or you can see the disc coming in on a pretty strong hyzer finish on these longer putts. Especially my jump putts, they were wanting to come out of the air a lot faster. It's okay. When you see percentages on these field throws, that's out of my power of 400-foot throw, a max distance thrower. So when I say 60% or even 75% here, that's going to be powered down to like a 300-foot thrower or a 350-foot thrower. So you can get a kind of a feel of how far this disc might go for you. And it might not be exactly accurate, just trying to adjust it. Now if you throw farther, you're going to have to adjust the distances as well. I was pretty impressed here. This is a 95% throw. This is not full power all going out, but pretty close. I got out to about 285, which is pretty close to where I was throwing my Judges as well, which are, again, slightly more neutral than this disc, so I thought that was a pretty good distance measurement. Pure hyzer, this disc just handled beautifully that line to about 235. And here is one of those things I talked about with turning the disc over. You're going to see it fade out and end up actually fading at the end here to about 235, and then me making the adjustment here to get to hold the ante out to 220. I didn't get the distance I wanted, but that is just something I need to work on, hitting that sweet spot in between those two throws. Here we have Bagger versus Wizard. You see the Wizard actually is a little bit higher up in the air. The fade, you can see the wing dip is is considerably more. It's a more overstable putter in general, and you're going to see that on the flight lines. Here on two low lines, pretty similar release, you're going to see the Wizard just never stands up like the bagger does, and that is going to cause it to just keep pushing on that hyzer the entire line. The Wizard tended to be just a little bit shorter than the bagger overall, and I attribute that to the stability on these throws more than anything. On this throw, the bagger had more height, so you are going to see it just keep drifting over toward the basket and a little bit more left, but the Wizard and the bagger were actually pretty close in those two throws. Now let's compare to the Judge. This is just an intentional hyzer. This was supposed to go out to about 220 feet. Both discs were in similar area on the field, not exact, but pretty similar distance, and easy to hold the line on that with both discs. On this one, it was intentionally forced over, and actually the bagger on the top screen, you're going to see where the Judge landed on the field there, and the flights are obviously very similar. You can see exactly where that bagger landed in comparison. Out to the field again. This is just a hyzer line out to that basket, throwing it to the right, giving the disc some height so it can just drift, and both of those discs end up just right at a pin. Out to the course. Here is that forced turnover. I am trying to get just about behind that big tree that you see in the middle of the screen, and you can see it just never actually works its way over. It ends up fading out and hitting the tree in the distance, obviously. Now you can see the green top of the basket, and you can see the adjustment I'm making. This is just a more turned over shot. I don't know. I actually had this shot work a few times. It ends up to the right of the pin, but it wasn't quite the line I wanted, but it still worked very well. Here we have bagger versus Wizard. I'm going to apologize for the black bagger on this one, purely because it just didn't show as well on the screen, but they are going to end up within like 5-6 feet of each other, and that's where the bagger was. Now where this disc really shone, I thought, was if you can just put in a hyzer line and let it drift. I know I hit a tree there, but that you could see that beautiful flight. It's holding that, and here's a good example of it. The Wizard on that low driving line is going to want to just skip up, whereas the bagger just has that nice fade, and you're going to see where these discs ended up, the Wizard and the bagger right next to each other. Quick recap, the bagger is a slightly wider diameter big bead putter. Its low profile wing design should allow for a clean release out of the hand, especially for moderate to big arms. This is going to be a very line shaping disc. For lower arm speed players, it might be slightly overstable, but still very usable overall. Once again, I want to thank Hazy Shade for making this review possible. Hit up their website, hazyshade.com, or head to their brick and mortar location in Dayton, Ohio to cover all your disc golf needs. Thanks for watching.